Now, it's certainly a great pleasure for me to be back here in the wonderful townland of Kappa in County Limerick, and with my very, very good dear friend, and we have become great friends over the last 2 or 3 years, is Billy McGuire. Of all the people that I have spoken to across the country and the Midwest, I have never ever come across a gentleman that has so much in-depth, passionate knowledge of our ancestors, of our sovereignty, of how we became Irish, and thanks be to God, Billy is in great health, far better health than I am, Billy, let me tell you. But it's great to be here, and thank you so much for having me again.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, John.
But
we do this not for any other reason, but for our people who
exactly.
are suffering, and our ancestors who suffered a lot.
Yes.
And that's what we do it for.
Exactly.
And I think today we should honour John Hume, is what
Yes.
we do. He was a great peacemaker.
Yes.
And we should tell the true facts about what happened.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I think that's so important.
And we'll put up the paper just to...
Yes.
That's John Hume on the Irish Times. A great, lovely photograph. You want to take that?
Lovely.
You want to see that?
Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah, let's take a good look at that now. That's excellent. Yeah.
And it's
very good.
That we're doing it in deference. And I know you're going to read the and this book that everybody should read.
Yes. Lovely. Irish Wisdom Preserved in Bible and Pyramids by Conor McDarry. That's a very big book.
Well, you can read it on the internet.
Right,
you
very
can
good.
Download that, and you can see when he wrote it, 1923.
1923.
And if you know what's in that book, and you know what's on Lochgar,
yes,
you'll understand what happened.
Yes.
And what happened in 1155, and that's what we're dealing with today.
Now, what happened in 1155 then?
Well, you take that now as that's Lochgar, right?
Right, okay.
And you see the stone circle there, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that is the largest stone circle. That's Old Grange, and everybody knows about New Grange.
New Grange,
and
yes.
Winter and summer solstice. But that was the sacred site. But what's important there, there's Ballinity and there's Rough.
Right.
And you're on the main
And we're out into the wonderful townlands of Brough and Ballinity, Great East Limerick, beautiful county.
Absolutely.
Beautiful county.
But what they have there, and nobody seems to recognise, this
Yes.
is so... You see those two lines?
Yes.
That's Carrigal. There's a hill up there. If you're
Yeah.
going into the Heritage Centre, you go down to Reardon's pub and you go in along that road.
Yes.
That's Temple Noah's church, and that's the Wedge tombs, and in there. And over that way, if you went that way, you'd come over to where the Fitzgeralds had a farm, and that's where the Fitzgerald Kennedys came from. And if you go to...
Oh, I see. So that's the connection.
That's the connection with the Fitzgeralds. And it's the Honey Fitz is called. It's the old school.
The Honey Fitz Theatre, like.
That's
I
it.
remember,
That's
yes.
called.
Yes.
And beside that is the church.
Yes.
And you'll see a map on the church where Fitzgeralds had their farm. And
Right.
this is the Fitzgeralds were the politicians in America. And as you know, we can link that to my father was very friendly. He got friendly with the Kennedys in America.
In America.
And he brought the Kennedys here to try and sort out Northern Ireland.
Ah,
And that
so
was
that's the connection again.
And the connection was when John Fitzgerald came here
Yes.
as president. De Valera was very unhappy with that situation because Rough is only down the line, and he came from Brewery, which is very near that.
It is actually,
And
yeah.
he didn't want world press because the cottage he lived in was very derelict. And Mannix Joyce.
I remember him, an absolute incredible man. Mannix Joyce.
that cottage for De Valera and all that, and did that now, and did the school in Brewery.
Yes.
And of course, you go down the river, then you come to Croom, and there were our mills.
Yes, the Croom Mills.
And Croom Mills Bakery and that. And there's
Yes.
a great link of the history all around there. They would have known all that.
But just going back on that, just touching on that, Billy, it was your father then
But, yeah,
that actually had the connection with the Kennedys
that's it.
in America
That's
and
it. He brought them here
brought them here.
to sort out. You'll see the photograph if you look at BillyMcGuire.com with him with
Ted Kennedy.
before, we say, President Kennedy came here.
Yes.
And he did it. This is why we're leading up to John Hume.
Yeah. But also
and
on
the
that then.
Now you have to see this as well. Now you see.
Oh yeah, that's very important. Now you understand that now. Yes.
That's very important, right?
Yes.
We've been showing you the stone circle there.
Yes.
And we've been showing you Carrigal, the 2 stone circles there.
Okay.
And if you go back and you put your 2 fingers there,
Yes.
that's it. Look,
I see that. Yeah.
you see it there?
Yes.
That's the harp sign.
Yes.
And that's the harp sign. And as you know, BBC 4 did a huge article on that. Fiona Bruce, who did an excellent article. She's a very good presenter.
Excellent.
But they didn't know, but that's the harp sign. Is what they,
Right.
and I'm
So
saying
those 2 fingers coming up actually
2
represent the
hands
harp
up
sign.
in the air.
Yes.
There are 2 fingers. Look, this is how you
Right.
do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Lovely.
I put.
No, I have it. Yes. Yeah.
There you are.
Ah, very
Put
good.
your
Yeah.
2 fingers up. The sun ship, the moon ship.
Right.
The sun ship, the rays of the sun grow all our food,
Yes.
and the moon ship then controls all the cycles of life and all the tides. And you put the 2 up in the air, sun ship, moon ship, and you put 2 together.
And they're the harp.
You have the harp, and that's the fellows of the wheel. You know, we'll show you a harp now in a minute.
Yes.
The fellows of the wheel, how you build your ship. I'm telling you, Leonardo da Vinci probably was never in Lochgar. I'm not saying he was.
Yes.
But he had to know all that information.
He did. Yeah. He had to.
And
yes.
we had all that information to travel the world. And
Yes.
we're talking about 10,000 years ago at
My
least.
goodness.
And they had all that on the harp. And I'll bring out the harp and I'll show it to you. As you said, you're going to do this in 2 pieces.
But can I just ask you, just to go back on that, what was the significance then of we know about Old Grange, or the new Grange, but the Old Grange?
This is Old Grange.
Yes.
That this is what they found. Our people.
Our
The
ancestors.
Celtic people.
Celtic, yes.
10,000 years ago. This
My
is the
goodness.
site
Yes.
they found, and it was a water site. If you look at Fedamore Bog, which is just here, there's Fedamore Bog. You'll see a huge expanse, and
Yes.
that was a floodplain. That's where they were going to build the airport here before
Yes.
they built Shannon, for Limerick, Clare, Tipperary, and Cork.
Yes.
But they went to Shannon instead. But
I
just
see.
shows you the importance. But it was all the way when you were going to, we'll say, to Bruff, on that road there. When you passed that road, there's the main road.
Yes.
That was all flooded. You were to come up there in the hill and to try and come up there to go around the flood, all that. And the council over the years drained all that.
I see.
And that's what's important. But what we're going on to, you've taken that now, and because if you read that book,
Yes.
you'll get all what happened in, the problems that happened were 1155.
Yes.
And that is when Pope Adrian IV, the only English Pope, he gave Ireland. And he gave it to Henry II to build his empire.
Right.
Illegally and fraudulently, that bull allowed to build it her. And I keep on asking the question, why did he give it? What was so important that Pope Adrian IV, the only English Pope, would give all this Ireland, which is Hibernia, which is Era. That's the translation of Hibernia. Era, small e, with an otto over it, to Henry II to build his empire. It's called the Donation of Ireland, and it's for the benefit and the profit of England and Rome. That's what he gave it for. What about us?
Yes.
And that's the conflict. This is what's crucial in the whole peace and reconciliation process.
I see now what you were
In
coming
1950, Pope Pius XII brought my father and mother out to Rome. Now there was, if you remember in 1950, there was a lot of clergy all over, Irish clergy all over the world, and
Yes.
other clergy. They did not want what's in the Irish church and all this information in Lochgar that I've just told you about, what the harp is and why it's so important. The harp is the covenant between God and man with all the information for his planet Earth and our civilization. It's Homo sapiens, which is on that again.
Yes.
And that's what we are, your intellect and reason and your 5 senses. is how you should look at things. And that's what's crucial, and that you can understand, maths and everything else you can understand in Loughgore. All that information is there in Loughgore. How to build the pyramids of Egypt.
Fantastic.
Everything is in it.
It's right in County Limerick.
Yeah, right in County
The answer
Limerick.
to it.
But this is what Pope Pius XII, and in those days, in 1155, this is the information they had.
Yes.
And that's what Rome wanted. If you take the old Irish church, the 2 5-stringed harps, which are on the Ark of the Covenant,
Yes.
Rome changed that to 2 angels.
Yes.
And they changed, it was in Lindisfarne. This was where all that happened.
Yes.
And that's what's so important where all this comes from.
Now, can I just return to a point there, because I'm learning from you as a layman.
Well, I'm
Because you're far from a layman. No, go away. But when Éire was given to Henry II,
yeah,
that was for his good use, as they say.
it was for the profit of England and the profit of Rome.
So
That bull laudability, if that is if it ever existed, is a fraudulent document.
right. Okay.
And that's what he gave it under the bull laudability. No one has ever seen the bull laudability. And that's what he gave it. And this is what's so important for the peace process.
right.
But the peace, reconciliation and prosperity process, what my father with Dr. Owen for.
Yes.
And we talked about Dr. Cooper, who was the parish priest. So he's from Newcastle West, and he was from, and he was the parish priest of Monaleen and St. Patrick's, and that was Classy, where the university is now.
Oh, yes,
Yes. All that, and Father Paddy O'Regan was Brendan O'Regan's brother, and he was the curate. And Bishop Casey, when he wasn't bishop then, he was the other curate in that. And there was a great Irish, I said, and in 1950, religion was very strong, and especially the Irish clergy, they brought Christianity to all those other countries.
Yes.
And that's where all this is, and they were the ones to influence Rome.
Right.
Now, I told you before that Dr. Cooper, he studied in Rome as a cleric, and he was a wonderful administrator. He knew everything that went on in Rome and how it worked and everything else. And the Irish clergy there didn't want any of that information in Loughgore to be lost.
Yes.
And the church has all that, because the church stayed from the old church, the Irish Celtic church,
Yes.
to the Roman Catholic church. And that's different. And the old Irish church was the sovereignty of God and the sovereignty of mankind. And the harp was the covenant between God and man with all the information for his planet Earth and our civilization. The first string is your measuring tape,
Yes.
how man learned to write. Everything is on it. Latitude, longitude, all that. If you went to Loughgore today, you could do all that. Information was left for us by our ancestors.
My goodness.
And when they saw the site that they had been looking for, the sacred site,
Yes.
which was
Old Grange now.
Old
Yes.
Grange, all that is surrounded by water.
Yes.
And when they saw that, and Carrigal with that,
Yes.
they built those stones, which are enormous, those stones. And Cromwell, that's why Cromwell came over to destroy that, because they wanted to destroy the Irish people.
Yes.
And the whole purpose of destroying the Irish people was they needed the food, their crown forces. Britain doesn't have sovereignty. Britain has royalty. But sovereignty comes from God, whereas royalty is man-made, it's like the Constitution. And what they wanted was, if you take Ireland and you take the East Coast right through the Shannon,
Yes.
and to evict all the people and get the land to feed the crown forces. And there's a wonderful book there, and you might take that. It
Yes.
is Ireland 1845 to 1850, The Perfect Holocaust, and Who Kept It Perfect. And it's by Chris Fogarty, who's a good friend of mine.
Actually, that name has rung a bell.
Yeah,
And it's a very interesting book. It's
That
called
is a great
The
book.
Perfect Holocaust and Who Kept It Perfect by Chris Fogarty.
That's
Yes.
a book everyone should read. We told you that one.
Yes.
There's another one for you to read. You see, your intellect and reason and your 5 senses. That's what Homo sapiens is.
Yes.
Different to other people and others. They don't have that.
Yes.
And you'll probably find that's coming more and more now. But that was the sacred site that they had been searching for, and that's what they found.
My goodness.
And
It's absolutely
It
incredible.
was like a university there.
Yes.
10,000. That's what they were teaching. Right to that, and teaching all that about the string, and when you see the strings of the harp, you have hieroglyphics, latitude, longitude, the sundial, the compass, the wheel.
Yes.
All mathematics come out of that. And all that. And I've been trying to get the University of Limerick. I brought out, when the University of Limerick, as you know, I live down there,
Yes.
the head of history. And I showed him the stone circle. And I told him all that. And I showed him the stones. And I told you, Cromwell, when he came over, he camped his troops there. And Arton was his son-in-law. And they defaced all the stones. The way you wouldn't have that knowledge and information, but we still know what it is. We still know the stones.
Yes.
And Arton, the Askeaton Psalter, the Book of Psalms is the Psalter, and the Psalter is the harp that accompanies the Psalter, the Book of Psalms. And we asked all mathematics, all science, all those stones in that circle, which I'll show you,
Right.
are in the next part, are very important. And
Well, what we'll do then is that we'll just take a quick break, Billy.
right.
And thank you again for joining us. And we'll be back with part 2 very shortly.